Hey guys, I hope you're having a fantastic summer. We're on week 2 of our mini series all about crazy big prayers. And last week we were talking about this prayer, which is Lord, make me bold, make me courageous, make me bold. And hopefully you prayed that with us. This week we're on to prayer number 2. And this one might not sound quite as crazy as you might think at first, but when we dig into it, I think you'll find that it's plenty challenging. And the prayer that we're going to talk about today is, Lord, let me hear your voice. Lord, speak to me. And as I said, it doesn't sound that big and mad and crazy. In fact, maybe this is something that's like right on your heart. I think that so many of us, so much of the time, we long to hear God's voice in us for our lives. I remember chatting to a guy a little while ago in a pub in Stockport, and he was saying to me, if I just knew what God's will was, if I just could hear his voice, then I could go in a specific direction, and I'd be brave, I'd be bold, I'd be courageous. I just need to hear his voice. And I think that there's two challenges when it comes to this prayer. First is this feeling that so many of us experience of not being able to hear his voice. And then the second is, when we do hear his voice, we've then got to obey. We've actually got to do what he says. And a lot of the time, it's not so much that the problem is that we can't hear his voice, it's that we don't want to hear what we think that we heard. And so we then ask again, or we ask, we phone a friend or do something else. And so, yes, we need to learn how to hear his voice, but also we need to learn how to be obedient and to implement, how to live out what it is that he is saying to us. And in the same way as I was talking about last week, I believe that if you spend more time praying this prayer, it can be a catalyst that changes your entire experience of life. And there's a posture shift in it as well. Rather than going into your day saying, this is what I want to happen, pray for this situation, going into it saying, okay, Lord, I'm here. Speak to me. What's your will for me today? What are you doing? How can I step into your plans? How can I step into your heartbeat? How can I follow you on this journey, at this destination, in this meeting, in this room, on my day off, on my work day, whatever the situation that you're in? It changes a posture. It's something that I've started to do a little bit differently recently as well. I used to pray, Lord, what's your will for my life? I'm trying to pray more now, Lord, what's your will? What's your heartbeat? What's your will for Stockport? What's your will for Manchester? And then how can I lean in? How can I serve your will? That's the prayer that I'm really talking about today. Lord, speak to me. Let me hear your heart. Let me hear your will. And we're going to look at a story in the Old Testament. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 3. You can turn there right now with me. And in this story, there's a young boy, probably like 11, 12 years old, who's gone to the temple, and he's with the priest, a man called Eli. The boy's called Samuel. And the boy doesn't really know God that well. He's not close to him, and he's going to sleep, and he hears his name being cried out, Samuel, Samuel. And he runs to the priest Eli and says, what is it? What is it? And the priest is like, go away, I'm sleeping, leave me alone, I haven't called you, go. And so he goes back to sleep, and he hears the voice again, Samuel, Samuel. And so he runs back to this priest and says, what is it? And the priest is like, look, get out of here, I'm trying to sleep. And so he then goes back, and he hears it again, and he goes to the priest, and this is now verse 8, and it says this, then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, go and lie down, and if he calls to you, say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel said, speak, for your servant is listening. And the Lord said to Samuel, see, I'm about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time, I will carry out against Eli everything that I spoke against his family, from beginning to end. For I told him I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God and he failed to restrain them. Therefore I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or by offering. So Samuel's this child, he's in the temple, he hears the voice of God, and his response is, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And get this, God doesn't say to him in this moment, "Great, I'm glad you're listening. I'm going to extend your tent pegs. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you a promotion. You need to be patient because I've got a wife who is gorgeous and amazing and she's just waiting for." He doesn't say this. He doesn't give him all of these amazing promises. He actually tells him something incredibly difficult and incredibly uncomfortable. He tells Samuel that he's got to go to his boss, to his mentor, to the priest Eli, and tell him that the judgment of the Lord is coming. And this is a challenge for us because we want to hear God's voice, but we don't always want to hear what he says. And so often what God says isn't going to just be reinforcing your comfort. It's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be difficult. You see this all the way through the Bible. To Abraham, God speaks to him and Abraham leaves his family. He leaves his comfort zone. He leaves everything that he knew behind to pioneer into a land that he'd never seen before. God spoke to Noah and he built an ark and people made fun of him, and then he experienced this crazy flood. It was uncomfortable. God spoke to Peter and he walked on water in the middle of a storm. When God speaks to you, it doesn't automatically lead you to a more comfortable place. In fact, it's highly likely to lead you to a difficult place. And so the biggest challenge for us isn't so much hearing God's voice, it's obeying what he has already told us to do. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So often we get this back to front. We treat God like he is the genie in the lamp, like he is the cosmic butler who comes to us and says, "How can I serve you, Ben?" And we give him our to-do list. Samuel's posture was the complete opposite. "Not my will, but yours. Speak, God, and I will follow." So how do we do this? If we want to pray this kind of prayer and really hear God's voice, I've got a few things that I think we should be doing. Number one, find somewhere quiet. Find a space away from everyone else. Number two, keep your prayers short and dedicate time to just listening. Number three, pay attention. It might be that a thought just pops into your head or a memory, or you might have a picture, or it could be that you read the Bible and something jumps out at you, but you need to be paying attention, even when you're not really sure what you're paying attention for. And that leads me to point number four, you need to be a bit risky. I've learned in my faith that I never get 100% confidence that that is what God has said. At best, I get 80%. And it's what we do with that 80%. Like, I think I heard you say this. I think this is what you're leading. I've got a peace about this area. I've got a gut feeling that you're leading me over here. And so I'm going to be a bit risky with this. I'm going to go for it, trusting that if I'm wrong, but I'm sincere in my desire to follow you, that you will catch me, you will be with me, and you will use everything for good. And so I'm going to be sincere, but I'm also going to be a little bit risky. And so I want to challenge you this week. I want to encourage you this week to pray this prayer with me. Lord, speak. Your servant is listening. And let's just take a moment now to pause, to wait, and to listen to what God might be saying to us.